And welcome to the Aaron Katzman Show. I'm your host, Aaron Katzman. We speak to you about your life, your money, and your investments. And as always, we're coming to you from the spiritual and soon-to-be financial capital of the world, Jerusalem, Israel. If you like this content, please hit the like button below. And if you've not yet done so, please subscribe to both the podcast and to the YouTube channel. And if you find this information worthy of maybe discussing with one of your friends or family, don't be afraid. Go ahead and hit the share button and share this as well. Now, I had an interesting meeting today with somebody who is approaching retirement, one of my favorite, if not my favorite topic. And she said, well, she's ready to retire. Her husband, who's a business owner, interesting, self-employed, is having all kinds of issues about retiring. And I said, well, you know what? That's really, really interesting. It's easier. It's not easy. So it's easier for somebody who's like working from 9 to 5 to plan for retirement than it is for somebody who's self-employed, for somebody who's an entrepreneur, because even if they have hobbies, chances are, right, they've given their whole life to their business or to their various ventures. And that's all they know, right? They know working 6-7 days a week, right? They know working 13, 14 hours a day. They know getting home and turning on the computer and working some more until it's really, really late. And all of a sudden, cut, right? And retirement day comes and they've got to give it all up. And now what do you do, right? So oftentimes, as I've spoken about, people are just like bouncing off the walls. It's really, really complicated. It's complicated for everybody to make the switch into retirement from working. It's even doubly, triply as hard for self-employed entrepreneurs to do it. I came across a really interesting article by Lou Carlozo, and he's talking about the 4 things nobody tells you about the first 6 months of retirement. And it's pretty good, I must say. He says, according to a study from the National Library of Medicine, retirees are more likely to experience depression compared to older Americans still in the workforce. An additional study from the same source also noted there's a direct correlation between a lack of retirement preparedness and increased depression systems. Interesting. And one aspect of retirement preparedness is understanding that, money and travel aside, it's the day-to-day things that can catch up with you. How often have you heard me speak about that? And now it's validated by who? The National Library of Medicine did a study based on what I've been telling you for years, okay? I don't know what that means about my qualifications, but I don't even know who the National Library of Medicine is, but it's good enough. It sounds impressive, doesn't it? Anyway, what's important is that, as we've spoken about so many times, you've got to prepare for retirement. And I don't want to talk today about the financial aspect of it, right? That's a big aspect. It's what I do, right? But leave that aside for a second. It's the more emotional, it's sort of transitioning work-life balance issues into retirement, right? What do you do when you just stop? And how many times have I told you, I've written about it, I've spoken about it, right? Where people come to me and they say, you know, we're so excited, right? You know, George, my husband's retiring on June the 30th. And on July the 2nd, we're going to be at the airport and off we go. And we're just going to love it. We're traveling. And I said, great. What are you doing August the 5th? Okay, so he traveled for like a month and then he recovered. And now what are you going to do? And that's when it sets in, right? There's only so much getting up late and sleeping in that one can do, especially if you're accustomed to working. You're going to go crazy. Trust me, you're going to go crazy. And it can't be that your whole retirement plan is travel. There has to be more to it. There has to be something that gives you a little bit of meaning. Back to the article, he says, you knew the abrupt lifestyle change was coming, but you didn't know how you would feel about it. Just as switching office locations or commuter rituals may have thrown you off during your career, going from your regular job routine to none at all can result in feelings of disorientation. Obviously, right? What do I do? Okay, so he says put new routines in place, start small by considering habits and rituals you can easily create around the home, yada, yada, yada. What I want to talk about briefly, and then we'll get back to this, is the need for a routine, the need for a daily schedule. How many of us remember, right? Turn back the clock to COVID, right? The COVID lockdowns where we're stuck at home, right? Many of us, some of us were fortunate that we could go to work, but many of us were stuck at home with no structure, right? Everybody's sleeping in, kids waking up at noontime, serving dinner at midnight. We had like a feeding. We had a second feeding at like midnight for the kids, right? We had normal dinner and then a second feeding because, they woke up at midnight. So dinner was like lunch and then they woke up at like noontime, right? So by the time we got to normal dinner time, that was like eating lunch. And midnight or 1 a.m. was sort of dinner for them. And there was tremendous amounts of anxiety. People didn't know what to do with themselves. The people who more successfully made it through the pandemic, the lockdown phase of the pandemic, that is, were those who created daily routine, right? Whether it's getting up at the same time, getting yourself dressed, right? Having that cup of coffee, reading the paper, watching the news, exercising, doing home projects, whatever it is. The people who had a lot less issue of depression and anxiety were the people who created a daily plan, right? That was for like a month or 2 or 3, right? The lockdowns. Imagine if you've got to figure out what you're going to do for the next 30 or 40 years. Okay, as I've said so many times, watching, Netflix in your underwear isn't going to be your retirement plan. You've got to do something which is going to find meaning. Going back to the article, he says, let's face it, a career can be a healthy distraction from your life outside the 9 to 5. Although workplace stress can certainly wreak havoc on your health too, now you suddenly have more time to sit with your thoughts. Perhaps you're wondering how you manage financially in a fixed income, or you're coping with declining health or mobility. According to a nationwide peak retirement report, almost 1/3 of respondents admitted they didn't feel financially comfortable. Now, like I say, you work with me, whatever. Leave that aside. Let's just assume that you're going to be. Let's take that as a given that you will be able to make it work financially, okay? But people still have that stress. And maybe the biggest issue is, as he says, let's say you fall into an enviable category, the healthy, active, and financially secure retiree. Even then, you may find yourself bored out of your skull once you're officially out of the workforce. If you're looking down retirement road and aren't exactly thrilled to see an endless trail of crossword puzzles, daily errands, and scrolling through Facebook ahead of you, there's a light at the head of the tunnel. If you find you miss workplace camaraderie, connecting with old and new friends can provide comfort, even restore a sense of purpose. Physical exercise or spending time in nature can also go a long way toward easing your anxiety or depression, regardless of age or possible mobility limits. Even 30 minutes of gentle activity can go a long way. I'll tell you, it's got to be more than that. Okay, it just can't be, okay, I'm gonna take a walk. There has to be structure. I've been researching this. There's not a lot out there about the need for structure once you retirement. And I just can't stress it enough. You have to have a daily routine. Yeah, you're gonna have time where you are bored. That's life. That's what we do. Like people at work or get bored also, right? So I wouldn't get depressed because it's raining outside and you've watched Oprah and you don't have anything else to do today. Okay, so that happens, right? That happens at work also if the workload is light. If you haven't slept well before, some of us have been known to sort of doze off sometimes at their offices. I wouldn't know who you're talking about, but they're laughing right now in my office as I'm speaking because occasionally I sense somebody coming into my office, and then they quietly move away because they notice that I'm like snoring. Okay, it's happened before. It doesn't happen often, but these are all things that happen, right? So don't get frustrated. Don't get depressed if it happens to you once you're retired, but you've got to figure out a way to give yourself some meaning. It might be, okay, I'm going to wake up, I'm going to exercise, coffee, the news, okay? I'm going to read, okay? Then I'm going to go and volunteer. Then I'm going to read some more. Then I'm going to go out and meet friends. Whatever it is, you've got to create a plan. And there should be more flex time in the plan. I'm not saying there shouldn't, right? But you've got to have some kind of structure or you're going to get stuck. And stuck once your retirement can be problematic. Okay, it can be problematic emotionally. Like, oh, I'm bored. Then what do you live? Why are you getting up? Right? Why do you get up the next morning? So you can eat a little bit more. There's got to be a reason to motivate you. And for some people, they do unbelievably well in retirement. It's better than when they were working because they have that structure, they have that plan, they're doing things which give them meaning, they're doing things which they enjoy doing. And that's so important. I can't stress that point. We'll speak in the future about the financial aspects. And as you all know, I've spoken about that. You can find lots of stuff that I've done about that. That's not the issue. The issue is really transitioning, right? From your, what I like to call work-life balance issues into how those issues, now that you're not really working, how that transitions into retirement and how you balance your life in retirement. It's an interesting topic, and we're going to speak more and more about it. You've been tuning into the Aaron Katzman Show, where we speak about your life, your money, and your investments, and how you can retire comfortably and emotionally well as well, stable. Okay. If you like this content, please hit the like button below. If you've not yet done so, please subscribe to both the YouTube channel and to the podcast. And if this was interesting for you, you thought it'd be useful for other people, maybe approaching a retirement, please share it with them, because that helps us. Okay. Thanks so much for tuning in, and we'll speak to you soon.